Bam, we're live. Just like that, I'm in all blue. TG3, ask why Elon was forced out. Elon wasn't forced out, was he? Thought this was canceled. Who knows? I just can't believe we're going to have 10 or 15 or 20 minutes with him. Let's not screw this up. Don't ask anything stupid. Pay big money if you want a question asked. This is going to be fun. This is real world shit. Big boy time. And he's cool. He's cool. This is a real one. Eli is a great guy. If you haven't heard the podcast when he's been on the show before, you should definitely go back and listen to those shows. He was also on Sean Ryan. I don't know when that was, but boy, that show was good. They got into the real nitty gritty, parts of I don't know if conspiracy theory is the right word, but the elements and aspects of government that are not straightforward. I guess you could say nefarious. Oh, you really are a foreigner. Social benefits. Y'all is Southern, but social benefits. Who uses that term? Social benefits. And just hang out online all day. Social benefits. Social benefits. Jeremy, David is actually part of the French Foreign Legion. Uh-oh. Oh, we are hopping on soon. All right. Damn. They were up all night, it sounds like. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, and Alex just and we'll have Alex Kazan on tomorrow. Okay, that'll be good. That'll be good. I'm sure she spoke to Curtis Bowler and everything's chill. Hey.
I still got 2K.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
What'd you get?
711.6.
Oh my god, dude. So
Taylor
you
said I
go and just wrote a 2K?
Yeah.
I wrote an 803.
Damn, nice.
Yeah. I don't know. Eli.
What's up, man?
Hey, thanks for doing this, buddy.
Yeah, sorry we've had to reschedule, man. Schedule up here gets stupid sometimes.
Eli, when's the last time you rode a 2K on the erg?
Oh, rode a what?
A 2K on the ski erg, on the C2. You ever rode a 2K on the erg?
I don't think so, man.
No, okay. Well, some of our friends put it. You know what that is? You know what the ski erg is? The rowing machine?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've done it, before, but never like for time or, just usually for a certain, I'll usually try and hit it for like 20, 30 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, there you go. We had a little challenge amongst friends. I lost, but I'm 20 years older than everyone. So
yeah.
What are you going to do? Hey, thanks for doing this. Have you been up all night?
I got about an hour and a half of sleep from like 4 to, I think, 5:30 or something like that. And then we had our final vote at, I think, 6 in the morning. That wrapped up at like, I think around 7. And then I got a couple more hours. So it's been an interesting week here in DC. But,
so what's being passed in for the average layman like myself is the bill that will determine the federal spending for 2025. Correct?
Yeah. So, that now, so it just passed out of the House. Now it's got to go to the Senate, and we'll see what the Senate does with it. And, that's going to, they have as much of a take on it, as much of a say on it as we do. So now the president's going to have to put pressure on the Senate to, pass everything that he wants in that bill. But the House passed it last night.
And the House is 435 of you guys from the 50 states plus
Yes, sir.
just Puerto Rico and DC. I don't know if they get votes, but they got a couple cats in there. And then there's 100 senators, and now they get to vote on it, and it has to be 51-49 or 50-50, and then the vice president can vote.
Yeah, so that's why this process is so important, Savan, is because it bypasses the filibuster. So we don't need 60 votes. We can just have a simple majority in the Senate. And that's why there's been so much effort from the administration to try and get the majority of what he wants through this process called reconciliation.
Okay. I won't bother you with explaining to a simpleton like me what that is. But basically, is this the budget for 2025 or for 2026?
Well, so what we're working on right now is it's been done kind of through the I would say the view of a 10-year window, like a decade. And so, there will be, appropriations packages that continue throughout the process, but this is kind of going to be, I would say, like a guiding light, if you will, for the rest of the president's term. Okay.
And there are some holdouts, right, in the Senate, and I don't exactly understand what this means, but I was learning about it, and they're calling them SALT Republicans, ones who are concerned about state and local taxes. Are you familiar with that? And could you give me the third grade level understanding of that?
Yeah, I can speak to it at about a third grade level. So.
Okay, let's hear it.
All right. So the guys that, we had holdouts in the House as well, that we call them the SALT guys. And basically it's individuals that represent blue states like New York and California. And because their taxes and regulations are so high in their states, they want some relief for their constituents and their donors. And it's kind of unfortunate to see this is just my opinion. It's unfortunate to see the rest of the country have to basically indirectly subsidize those states because, of their state laws and, their state governments being so awful. That being said, I think it's going to be really good, for New Yorkers and Californians. But I think the CBO's price tag on what we just passed in regards to SALT is, I think, $340 billion over 10 years. And so when you look at the fact that we're close to $37 trillion in debt, we're running $2 trillion annual deficits, that didn't help us, turn this ship from going off the cliff any sooner. And I don't know if you remember me talking about, deficits when I came on your show, years ago, but this has been one of my biggest concerns. And unfortunately, a lot of people in Washington just don't give a damn about the deficits, the spending, and it's bipartisan. It's a Republican issue. It's a Democrat issue. It's like people either haven't studied history, or they just don't care, and they're hoping that this house of cards doesn't collapse while, they're in office, or if it does, they're hoping they can blame somebody else for it. But it's out of control. That's the bottom line. And I wish we had more adults up here that were less focused on things like that, and more focused on the bigger picture of the fiscal insanity in Washington and trying to bring back some, I would say, some sensible, fiscal reform to, get us back headed in the right direction, man.
Accountability would be huge. Hey, yesterday, I don't know how you keep up on what's going on, but yesterday, South African president came to the White House. I don't know if you were able to keep up on all that while also dealing with the bills and all that stuff, passing the budget. But basically, the guy shows up to the White House, and there's a lot of talk, and you know it as well as I know it. I know you were in the military. We've been hearing about this for 20 years for anyone who can listen. but that a lot of white people get killed in South Africa because they're white. And it's kind of reached a crescendo and a climax. And he brings the president of South Africa into the Oval Office, and he says, "Hey, look at this. Some of your peeps over there are just openly saying, let's kill Whitey."
Yeah. I did get a chance to follow it, Savan, and I'm grateful that, I'm grateful that we have a commander in chief that actually has the courage to, call people out like that to their face in the Oval Office when the press is there, because this has been going on for a very long time. And I do believe it's, genocide, and I do believe it's, racially motivated. I believe it's wrong. And I mean, you can just watch the president of South Africa sit there and act like he doesn't know what's going on. Give me a break, man. The president showed him, if you go watch that video, the president showed him a video of stadiums, full of people chanting the same thing. And then he showed him, a long road in South Africa where, I think over 1,000 crosses are buried for, white farmers that have been, murdered as their land's been taken away. And so, I mean, it's absolutely wrong, but, one of the best ways to deal with something like that is through exposure. And a lot of times diplomacy takes place in Washington, D.C., where everybody puts on a good, happy face, during meetings at the Oval Office or here in Congress or wherever it is. And nobody's willing to have those tough conversations, and most certainly not in an open, format.
So this happens. I'm so glad to hear you say that, because once again, the transparency, the openness, we can all see what's going on. We have clarity on the situation. And then the very next, within hours, the media, I don't know if you saw this collage, but they all start using the exact same tagline. This
something
is
of a diplomatic ambush of South Africa's president in the Oval Office.
To be with you, I'm Katie Tur. President Trump orchestrated another Oval Office ambush today.
Today, Donald Trump meeting with the president of South Africa and attempting to ambush and humiliate that leader.
So you get the picture. They just keep saying ambush, ambush, ambush. How does that work? Do you know how the left-wing media, is someone controlling them? Like, hey, use this word. This is the word we're going to go with today.
Absolutely, Savan. And you saw it during COVID. You've seen it so many times. It's like, I think, and thank God in a way that, media has expanded with many podcasts like your own, many shows, that are outside the mainstream media, where you can actually have independent thought, and, people that aren't, talking heads that are bought and paid for by corporations or think tanks or, NGOs or whatever it is. And so the American people, I think, have woken up, especially, during the COVID era and beyond, to, exactly the propaganda machine that the mainstream media is. I mean, if you take just that one issue, right, of, Africans openly calling for the murder of white South African farmers, and we're not just talking about one or two people here. We're talking about tens of thousands of people in stadiums doing it. And then they want to turn that into President Trump ambushed the South African, president in the White House. I'm so glad he did it. And, it's like we elected the president of the United States. And I love the fact that there's finally some transparency, coming from the Oval Office and the chief executive officer in this country, where he just says, hey, whether it's Zelensky or whether it's the president of South Africa, we have a problem with this. And I want the American people to know that I'm on it. And I want the American people to know that I'm calling people out. And, it's like, not everybody agrees with that, that tact, but I definitely do, because in a world where we feel like we just constantly get lied to by our government, I think, the president's willingness to have some confrontation and some uncomfortable conversations, about very serious issues, I think just, helps restore an iota of trust with the American people, who get to see him do that and know that, the things that they care about are being addressed and highlighted from, the chief executive in the White House.
And thank you, by the way, for saying all that. When Epstein died in his prison cell, the security guards, the guys who worked there, were supposed to check his cell every 30 minutes. They didn't. There's supposed to be cameras in there. They were broken. He was supposed to have a roommate. They didn't put one in there. He dies. There's all this sensationalism that he works for like the Mossad or the Israelis or they're blackmailing presidents, all this mystique, right? So of course he was killed because blah, blah, blah. And then you have these two people, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, who are like, hey, we're going to get to the bottom of this. And we get all excited. And then they get into office and they're like, hey, fuck, dude, he killed himself. Do we believe them? I want to believe them.
Yeah. So, here's where I'm at on that one. I still have strong suspicions that Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. One of the things that I heard Dan Bongino, who I know and who I do have a lot of respect for, and Kash Patel, they said that we've looked at the file, we've read the file. To me, that doesn't mean that the file was complete or everything that any measure of foul play that could have taken place in regards to that was put in a file for them to read. One of the things, I'm on the oversight committee for declassification. One of the things that we're looking at right now is JFK. And, I've heard from many experts, if the CIA or one of our agencies was involved in the president's death, they probably didn't write it down and put it in a file, right? That would be kind of stupid, to put something like that, on actually document it, put it on paper and put it in a file so that somebody could read and find out that you were secretly trying to either kill Jeffrey Epstein or, anyone else. And so that's a little bit of my problem with, that issue. Of course, I haven't been able to look at that documentation like Dan Bongino, who, again, I do have a lot of respect for and a lot of trust in, but that would be my only pushback on, what I've heard at this point.
The thing is that the distinction for me is that I hear people like Chuck Schumer or Adam Schiff talk, and they just seem like slimy politicians to me, like that they have no problem lying. They're like a 3-year-old, just no problem, just comes. But I don't think Dan Bongino and Kash Patel want to lie to the American people. So if they were lying, I would think that it makes them deeply, deeply uncomfortable.
Well, here's the thing, Savan, like all they can really go on is the information they have in front of them. Like if I believe that they both read the file. I believe that the file didn't have, any evidence or any documentation of, a cover up or some type of assassination attempt from our federal agency. But like I said, if there was, I doubt it would be written down and documented in a file. And so, I haven't seen it, so I want to give these guys the benefit of the doubt. But that being said, I think that that's something that, just use a little common sense. We just got to use a little common sense and look at the fact that if these guys are doing something that nefarious, I don't think that they're going to document it and write it down and put it in a file for, somebody, through a FOIA or some oversight committee, or, even somebody like Dan Bongino or Kash Patel, who, I would say are complete outsiders to the swamp, to uncover and then expose and then possibly charge somebody with a crime.
I want to thank Matt McCall. Thank you so much for working with the podcast. He's been absolutely great. Tell him thank you so much. I'm so glad you came on. I really want to have you on when you get back home and just shoot the shit with you for 90 minutes when you get a chance. And just you're a great conversationalist, and I know you have so much more to share. And I know you've been up for 24 hours, but just really quickly before you leave.
Hey, Savan, I can do a couple more minutes if you got more questions, man.
Okay. Are you sure? I don't, because I'm cool. Okay.
No. I can. A lot of, after passing that bill yesterday, a lot of my schedule has been, cleared out. So I got to fly here in a couple hours back to Arizona, but I can take a little more time with you if you got more questions.
Okay. I was going to ask you this. Tell me about you touched on your mood having a president who's keeping it real by having that honest conversation with the South African president in the office. What is the general mood of just all of this realism? I don't think people realize, like, in one day, Trump has communicated more with the American people than Biden did in 4 years. I don't think that that's hyperbole. What is the general mood in Washington?
Well, I mean, as you know, there's a lot of people that hate the president. They hate everything he stands for. I would say, a lot of Washington, D.C. is designed to keep the establishment moving, keep it going, keep your money, your tax dollars flowing out of this place, and headed in all different directions and for all different types of things that many Americans honestly wouldn't support. And so I think the general mood in Washington, D.C., at least on our side of the aisle, is a little bit of gratitude. And I don't think maybe awe is the best word here, but many of us are pretty impressed with the speed at which this administration has been moving. And I think there are many of us who are very disappointed that our body that I serve in, the Congress, cannot keep up with him and codify into law everything that he's doing, just because we have so many different factions. Many people aren't on the same page as the president. I think many people aren't looking at or trying to radically transform the way that Washington functions, and they kind of have a myopic view of doing what they need to do to get elected and nothing more.
Have you been pushed at all? Have you had to be in one of those situations where there's a bullshit plant in your region that's a building solar panels or something, and that you have to upset your constituents for the greater good? Have you? Because that's basically what you're talking about, right? That it's like difficult because people have taken all of this money from all of these different ideas, and let's just use the big Green Deal. A lot of people were making money off of that, and small businesses were starting in different communities. Have you been pushed to a place where you're like, oh, sorry guys, for the greater good, I have to cut you off? Yeah,
absolutely. Whether you're talking about the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, all the subsidies for the Green New Deal, wind, solar plants, absolutely. But there was even I would say a more hot button issue up here in Washington that's become a more hot button issue out in the public as well, as and I'll just talk openly about it. Medicaid. Okay. There is not one federal agency or one program in Washington, D.C. that is not riddled with fraud, waste, and abuse. And, I know there's probably a lot of American people that have a sense of that, but once you get up here and you start having these conversations and you start looking at the numbers, and you start talking to, some of the experts here that have spent, years, if not decades of their life diving into these problems, and these issues, that is absolutely what you'll find if you have an open mind and you're willing to actually look at these issues problematically and with an open mind. And so I'm going to go back into, Medicaid was created, I think, back in the mid 60s for our most vulnerable populations. Okay. So take like impoverished children, their caretakers, the disabled, the blind, the deaf, etc. Guess how many people are on Medicaid right now, Savant?
I have no idea.
80 million people. Okay. 80 million people. It's one of the largest federal programs that we have. And it too is full of fraud, waste, and abuse. In the last 5 years, Savant, that program has grown by 50%. And in many ways, it's grown that rapidly because the way the program is currently designed is to incentivize people to get on that program that were never supposed to be on that program. Okay. And guess what the biggest demographic of that growth, that I just talked about is?
Oh no, please don't tell me young males.
Able-bodied working age males.
Damn.
Okay. And
Jesus.
so they're right. And
hey, that's a sign, not to interrupt, but that's a sign of a collapse of a civilization when able-bodied males will take that shit. That is a bad sign.
100%, right? And so there are some of us up here that we're trying to make reforms to Medicaid because one, it's not sustainable. We can't afford it. We can't afford that, that rapid growth that we're talking about. We'll leave aside the fact that that's not what this program was intended for a second. But, I talked a second ago about the fact that we're $37 trillion in debt. Okay, we're running minimum $2 trillion annual deficits, meaning we're spending a minimum of $2 trillion more every single year that we bring in. Okay, and I talked to an economist down in Florida who was a PhD who worked in Trump's first administration, Savan. This guy told us, my group, this, and I'm part of the group, the House Freedom Caucus, which is the most conservative group in Washington, D.C. He said this, Savan. He said, you guys, based on the modeling I've done, which is consistent with many of the other models that are well recognized. He said, you guys have about $17 trillion left in debt cap before we can no longer sell our bonds anymore. Okay. He said, if you guys pass the Trump tax cuts at the end of this year, which I assume you will, which we just did last night out of the House, that number goes down to $12 trillion. So if you're running $2 trillion annual deficits and you only have $12 trillion left in debt cap before you can't sell your bonds, do the math on how much time we have, right? According to his modeling, we have 6 years before we can no longer sell our bonds. We almost failed a bond sale just this week, and you saw the markets react to that. And the reason for it is because of the out of control spending in Washington, D.C. Okay. And so that's why some of us up here are like, on the bridge of the Titanic screaming that there's an iceberg ahead and we need to turn the wheel. And most of this conference, most of the people in Washington, D.C., Savan, do not care. They're dancing, they're moving deck chairs around on the Titanic, and they do not even care. And so, that's one of the big issues. But back to your original point, all of us are taking massive criticism and worse from those that believe that we're just wanting to, take benefits away from people because we're looking at each one of these agencies. We're doing deep dives into them, and we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we reverse course here? How do we make these agencies and these programs as efficient as possible and protect the people that they're supposed to be used on, right? And we could talk about, you talked about the collapse of society, right? Most governments, or many governments around the world, unfortunately, Savan, want their people to be on the federal team, right? Why is that? Why do you think that is?
Because that's how they keep their jobs.
That's how they control people. When you're dependent on money from the federal government, and then they tell you, you have to do X, Y, or Z, you have to take this jab or this vaccination, or you don't get your money, right? That's when people get into trouble with the government. And you've seen it happen throughout the course of history, not just in the United States, but a bunch of other places. And I think that's why it's so important, in addition to the fact that it's not economically and financially sustainable, that we push back away from the direction that we're heading, and we try and protect these programs for who they were really intended for in the first place.
The Medicaid thing, would that be, when you look at that, is it, hey, what can we do to make sure that this isn't a magnet for able-bodied men?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And one of the fascinating things that I found out, when talking to experts up here in DC who have been, working on these issues long before I even got here, is that many of these states are actually, they're incentivized to add, able-bodied working age Americans, and in some cases illegal aliens, onto their rolls. And they actually, they call it the expansion population. They actually get reimbursed 9 times the amount of money than they would for somebody who's supposed to be on that program. And so they're incentivized to expand their roles and put more and more Americans on these programs. And you go back to the financial 30,000 foot view that I've been talking about. It's not sustainable. And, you're definitely in, 5, 6, 7 years, you definitely won't be protecting those folks that are supposed to be on that program and who really need it, who can't work. And it's just one of the many issues up here that I've been willing to draw a hard line on and take the slings and arrows, from, the critics out there, to try and change the way that Washington works.
To those of us who are paying attention, it's pretty obvious that something was wrong with the former president, Biden. We knew it all along. I think that there's documentation of Hunter Biden saying even back in 2011, his dad was showing signs of Alzheimer's. They found that on the laptop. When we see now it's just come out, it's everywhere, that basically he was gorked. Will there be any repercussions for that? The fact that there were people who knew he was gorked, that he wasn't an able-bodied human, and that he was still in office?
It's possible. I don't hold my breath up here, Savan, but it is possible. I know that a lot of people knew that he was declining very rapidly. We knew that even when he was running for president the first time. The guy could barely string together a sentence. He had trouble, walking around the stage, walking upstairs. You can go watch highlight videos of him falling all over the place on his bike, off a stage, not making any coherent sense whatsoever. But what I will tell you is if there was going to be accountability for those individuals who gaslit and lied to the American people about the mental capacity and health of the president, this would be the administration to do it. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had a representative, MacGyver, who went to a ICE holding facility and actually assaulted a couple federal agents, both physically and verbally, and broke into the facility. And we were screaming from the mountaintops, all of us up here, like, hey, is this going to be another two-tier justice system where because you're a member of Congress, you don't have to face the music and get charged for something a regular citizen would? And just this last week, charges were dropped against Representative MacGyver. So
they were dropped?
Yes. Just this last week, you can go look it up for yourself.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah. So, like I said, if there was an administration that was willing to do it, it's this one.
I do see that Letitia James is in trouble, and I don't know if you've seen, but it looks like Schiff is in trouble. That they have Schiff, Adam Schiff. Did you see what happened? What they found out on his mortgage?
No, I didn't.
Application. Basically, what I saw is that they were reporting that he has Maryland as his primary residence, but he's voting in California. And I'm curious, as these things unfold, if more and more people will get in trouble. Obviously, on one hand, those things happen and people should be given, common decency. But after what they did to Trump for 4 years, you're kind of like, hey.
Yeah, well, like I said, Savan, I think one of the biggest frustrations for the American people out there is they feel like there is a two-tier justice system where if you're an elected official or you hold a high-ranking office, you can get away with things that they couldn't get away with. And I don't blame them. They should be very frustrated with that. But like I said, if there is an administration that's willing to, hold people accountable, this is the administration that would do it.
And the politicians should hold themselves to the highest standard. You're the example, right?
Yeah.
You're the example.
No, absolutely, man. And, it's something that, I think about all the time. I'm a sinner, man. I fail all the time, but, there shouldn't be one standard for me and a standard for a regular American citizen.
Colin, all cars. Sevon can barely string a sentence together. He's no Einstein. Yeah. Caleb's the eye candy. Isn't the internet great?
Oh man, it really is. In many ways it's great. In many ways it's pretty awful, but I think it's like a lot of things, right? Pros and cons.
Do you know this guy? I think he was one of your fellow colleagues back in a previous lifetime. Do you know Josh from High Ground Beef Chips?
What's his last name?
You know his last name?
McCandless.
I think he was.
He was an EOD tech.
Oh, he was.
in the
Oh,
Navy.
okay.
But
Okay.
his partner Dylan, I think Dylan Larson, he was a SEAL.
I might know him. The names don't ring a bell, but then again, I'm getting old, man, and my memory's not what it used to be. So
You went on the Sean Ryan podcast after you go on a show like that, and it was an incredible podcast. And the two of you were great. What was the other congressman's name?
Tim Burchett from Tennessee.
Are you guys friends in real life?
Tim or Sean?
Tim.
Yeah, all three of us are friends in real life.
Oh, he's cool. You guys were great together.
No, Tim's awesome, man. He's another guy up here that, you can often tell who's angling for a higher position and who's just trying to change the way this town works. And, Tim is definitely one of those guys that he puts himself in political jeopardy all the time to try and change this kind of.
Do you guys get in trouble after you go on a show like that? Or do you get a talking to or warned or?
Yeah, sometimes, just like anything else, if you if you worked at a job and there was a chain of command and you went on national television and kind of called out some of your leadership, you might get a talking to. But for me, the way I look at it, Savannah, is I didn't come to Washington to make friends. I didn't come to Washington to climb the political ladder or become a career politician. So it's just like, I've definitely made some enemies up here because, that's been, kind of the tact I've taken, but I wouldn't have it any other way, man.
How do you know what's going to happen out of the White House? Do they give you a heads up at all? Meaning, the two examples are, it seems like Trump has shifted his strategies and his tactics when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, and then also in the same 24 hours switched his tactics with Netanyahu and Israel in Gaza. It went from let's clear this place out and build a Taj Mahal 2 there to let's save all Gazans. How do you guys know how to roll if you're going to roll with the party?
Like for instance, just this week, we voted early this morning on the big beautiful bill that the president's talking about. I think he's come to the Hill twice now this week to talk to us about it and why he wanted us to support it. So it depends on the issue. There are a lot of things in regards to foreign policy that often we learn about them just as, everybody else learns about them through the media. It kind of depends on what the issue is, whose support he needs, as far as who gets briefed up, if anybody even needs to get briefed on what he's getting ready to do. But oftentimes we learn about it when you do.
Okay. And if you wanted to meet him, if you wanted to have a meeting with him, like I think I heard Mike Johnson say, it took him 9 weeks to get a meeting with Biden. If you personally wanted to meet with Trump, could you get a meeting like that? Like if you had something you needed to talk to him about?
It would depend on what the meeting was about. The president, the guy is so busy. You saw him come back from the Middle East just this last weekend, and he immediately went to work where most people would have been wiped out. He's working on the big, beautiful bill. He had the president from South Africa come in. I know he had a college team come in that just won some championship or something. And the guy's kind of a beast when it comes to, how hard he works. So it would depend on the issue. Some of my colleagues just yesterday went to the White House to talk to him about this big, beautiful bill. They had some concerns about it, and he met with them, but it's kind of dependent on what you need to talk to him about, and how important that is as his staff is kind of prioritizing his week and his daily schedule.
Do you look forward what's going to happen in 3 years when there's a new election? Have you thought about that? Who might be next in line to be president?
I think many of us that work in this space, are constantly talking about, maybe not constantly, maybe that's not a good word, but we do talk about, who we see as, front runners in our party. and what that might look like, just like the rest of the American people do. But I am, I don't want to get too far out ahead of my skis on it, because I'm glad that we've got him for at least 3.5 more years.
Yeah, I know. I try to keep telling myself that too. Hey, just be happy we have him now. He's also old as shit, and he's showing no signs of it. But at some point it's got to show, right? At some point, I mean, he's only human.
Yeah, you obviously we would all think that, but I can tell you I've had several interactions with him just in this 119th Congress, and I have seen zero sign. And I'm not Jake Tapper here, right? Telling you, oh, he's great, Chuck Schumer. Oh man, he's never been sharper. Meanwhile, the guy's stumbling around, falling all over the place. Probably, can't control his faculties. But no, the meetings I've had with him, not only was he extremely sharp, but the guy's hilarious. That's something that a lot of people don't get to see, behind closed doors. He's hilarious. So I think he's in very, very good mental and physical shape at this point to continue to lead the country.
The Comey thing, 86-47. Do you think that do you think he's lying? I don't know how anyone could not know what 86 means.
Especially the director of the FBI, who spent that was like his job, to know what these, not only know what these terms mean, but to prosecute people that make threats against the president of the United States. Yeah, I don't buy that for a second, Comey. It doesn't really appear to have helped, his book sell that well. I've heard it's not really doing that well, but yeah, I mean, I would love to see some accountability on that one as well, because what type of message does that send? We talked about two-tiered justice system, just a second ago on your podcast, where high-ranking officials and politicians can get away with things that regular Americans would probably face charges for.
Yeah, and what are the odds that he, of all people, stumbled across shells made up as 86-47? Like, none of it seems plausible to me. Like, absolutely none of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know there's a lot of people that hate the president, so I wouldn't be surprised if, matter of fact, there's a lot of people that hate me for my political views, and I totally accept that. So I wouldn't be surprised if somebody did, put out some seashells like that. I also wouldn't be surprised if Jim Comey, just based on what I've seen of him, did it himself and then acted as if, because he's clearly, in my opinion, lying about he didn't know what it meant. And his wife said, oh, somebody, put their home address on the beach.
Right.
She used to be a waitress, and people used to do that on receipts or whatever. I don't buy it for a second. So I wouldn't be surprised one way or the other. But when it comes to things like that, I try, to be open-minded about it and go where the evidence takes, but also at the same time, use a little common sense and, realize that James Comey hates the president of the United States. He willfully posted that on his social media. I mean, people that didn't spend 30 years in the FBI knew exactly what that meant, right? And so, again, that's another one of these instances that I would love to see this administration hold James Comey accountable for, because I think it sends a strong message, to any other American that, hey, you can't just do what James Comey did, basically post a death threat online against the president of the United States and expect to get away with it.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I saw it. And he's also, though, from his past, we know with the Hunter Biden laptop, he was behind burying the Hunter Biden laptop. He's clearly a unethical man who, like you said, hates Trump. It is really disappointing to see they did that. I took it as kill Trump also. The border just closed.
Imagine that, Savan. I mean, last Congress, we were told that we needed to support a bipartisan bill to shut the border down. And when those of us voted against it, because it basically would have codified into law the invasion of the U.S., the Democrats said that, oh, see, these guys really don't want to shut the border. What we were saying is, I mean, I could go into that legislation. I think you had to have like 5,000 people enter a day before, that we could actually stop it. But there were many reasons to vote against that bill. But what many of us said was, you don't need legislation. The president of the United States has the authority to secure the border, just like he was working on in his first term. And once again, he ran on it the second time. That was a big part of his first campaign. And within, I think, 5 weeks, the border was largely secured. Crossings and encounters have dropped by 95%. Right. One of the things that we just voted on in this big, beautiful bill, I think, was over $100 billion for not only border defense, technology to finish the border wall, train and hire more agents, make sure that they have counter drone capability. That's another thing that we need to think about, Saban, is that, the cartels aren't just going to walk away from this multi-billion-dollar business they've spent decades developing, right? There's too much money involved. So if they can't go, get their products, their human trafficking, human smuggling, sex trafficking, smuggling terrorists in, fentanyl, whatever it is, on the surface of the border, they'll go under in tunnels, or they'll use drones to go over the border. And so a big part of, this funding package and this big, beautiful bill is making sure they had the technology to not only make sure the border was secure this year, but for many years to come.
It's a trip how things just move so quickly in the news cycle too, right? Like if these things hadn't have been happening, like what happened with the South African president or the big, beautiful bill, we would still be talking about tariffs. But the tariff thing is still ongoing as well. And that was the biggest story of the year for a couple weeks.
Yeah. And, this goes back to what I said kind of about what the president did with Zelensky in the Oval Office or the president of South Africa. I'm glad the president actually had the fortitude to take this on, because for too long, Savan, we have had unbalanced, unfair trade deals with a lot of these countries. And I don't even blame them. If you can rip somebody, like if you can take advantage of somebody in business, a lot of people are going to do that, right? I don't blame them. I blame our leaders for not having the fortitude to readjust and renegotiate these trade deals. I mean, many of them have been very unfair for a very long time. We're running trade deficits with a lot of these countries. They want to import all these products into our country and pay nothing, yet they'll slap a tariff on our manufacturers who want to export something over into their country and set up all sorts of other non-tariff barriers to make it hard for our companies to do business in their countries. And tariffs can be used, as the president has, not just for trade, but he's also used them. He's used them to, for instance, get Mexico to play ball and to send troops to the southern border to help us out with this border invasion that we faced for 4 years. And so I love, and you saw that the mainstream media just lose their minds that the president was doing this. Every single day they were covering the stock market. But after the president executed, in my opinion, the art of the deal, and he drew a hard line, and then all these countries wanted to come to Washington, D.C. to sit down with them because they knew how it was going to impact them. And he put a pause on these tariffs and started renegotiating trade deals. What happened to the stock market? It came right back up. You won't see the mainstream media cover that. And, a lot of people don't realize what a lot of the elites in this country have done to our manufacturing base. And we've lost about 90,000 manufacturing plants. I'm not talking about 90,000 jobs. I'm talking about 90,000 manufacturing plants. And that becomes very, very dangerous if you have to go to war or you have a pandemic and you cannot manufacture the medicines that people need to deal with the pandemic. We cannot manufacture the equipment that we need to fight a war. And so, and that doesn't even touch the aspect of so many of these communities being hollowed out. They used to be thriving communities. They used to have, an automobile manufacturing plant in their district, or, they used to have a steel manufacturing plant. I have a lot of mines in my district, right? That, being able to manufacture is so important. It's one of the things that made the United States so strong And it also made our economy very strong as well because middle-class Americans had high-paying jobs at factories.
Yeah, they took the able-bodied men out of factories and put them on Medicaid.
Yeah.
Hey, when is your reelection?
Yeah, so we have to run every 2 years. So I'll run again, and I'll be up for reelection in 26.
Will that be your third term?
Yeah, if I win, it'll be my third term, and I'm definitely on the target list. But hey, the way I say it is, if you're not on the target list, you're probably not doing something right. So bring it. And if I lose, Savon, they'll probably be doing me a big favor, so I can go spend time with my family, man.
Would they run another Republican against you or a Democrat? When you say,
it's possible either way.
Okay.
Anything's possible. My own party tried to take me out last time, but they were unsuccessful in doing that.
God, I wish you were my congressman.
Yeah, no, it's been an honor, man. It's exhausting in many ways. I spend about 3 weeks a month in DC away from my wife and kids, which is always brutal. But this country needs good men and women to step up that are just average people that are willing to step up and go serve, and that are willing to not conform to the swamp, conform to whatever party they're a part of. That's been one of the things I've observed, Savon, especially military guys coming into Washington, D.C. They often seem to think that their new chain of command is the political party they represent in their leadership, and I don't see it that way at all. I see my chain of command as the close to 800,000 people in Arizona that I represent, and if I'm representing them, then I'm keeping my boss happy. But
and you stay close to the Constitution, I'm guessing, also.
Yeah, we do. I mean, it's kind of the North Star up here, and you try never to get far away from it, and that can be interesting, especially when you're looking at. There's a lot of people that they'll write a bill or whatnot, that's seems like a great idea and a great bill, but sometimes I'll vote against it because that should be something that's handled at the state level, right? State, the 10th Amendment, states' rights, that's a very big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Our founders wanted to keep the federal government really small and limited, and you wouldn't know that if you walked around Washington D.C. today. But the Constitution, man, it's a phenomenal document. It's amazing how the foresight of our founders who put a pen to that, and I wish in many ways more elected officials in Washington just not only cherish but adhered to that document.
Last point, good point. You ever see this Scott Jennings guy on CNN?
I have, yeah. He throws down pretty hard at times, man. It's good to have
he's crazy,
have a guy
right?
like that on CNN.
Yeah, amazing. He's saving the network. I think he's saving the network. He's the only thing over there worth watching.
Right.
And I'm not just saying it because of my political views. It's just he's articulate, he's strong, he's pointed, he's logical. It's great.
He's got common sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Brother, thank you for coming on. Enjoy your time going back home. Thanks for staying up all night and taking care of the country. And like I said, tell Matt McCall, I said thank you so much, and thank you for working with the Savon podcast. Really appreciate it, Eli.
Thank you, brother. It's good to see you, man. God bless.
Yep. Cheers. You asshole, telling me that you can't be saying that I can't spit a sentence out while I'm in the middle of the show. You got to be jerking me off, telling me I'm killing it, you jackass. You got it. We're one team here. Build me up. Not make me sweat bullets, you pussy. God, I love Eli. I wish he was my neighbor.
Yeah, he's super cool.
God, he's fucking cool. His parents must be so proud of him.
I mean, he's had a pretty legendary life, I think, already. So that's cool.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Matt Burns. Thank you. That's all I need to hear. All right, I got to go to the Toyota dealership. I want to have a beer with Eli. I know, me too. He is cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't even drink beer. shit, he is cool. I'm doing my hair like his. Until I turn into Jesus, I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? I'm gonna grease it back until it's like.
You're gonna have the Brad Pitt Fury look.
I don't know. Is that what Brad Pitt Fury? Is that a movie?
Yeah, have you seen Fury?
No. I stopped watching. I used to love Brad Pitt. After I don't know what happened. I stopped liking him, like his movies.
This
I
one.
don't like Quentin Tarantino movies. Is that a Quentin Tarantino movie?
No.
Oh.
This is a fucking gangster movie, though.
Is that Shia Latifah? Shia
LaBeouf, yeah.
I may have seen that movie. I think I actually did like that movie.
It's fucking good.
That like their tanks break down and they have to go on foot or some shit.
Yeah, they're a tank crew.
Yeah, I think I did see parts of that.
It's good. It's good.
Where is that jackass that said that Sevon's no Einstein? Where is that douchebag? Come out wherever you are, you little twat. Colin. Oh, sorry, you're probably unfamiliar with Einstein. You son of a bitch. Colin, I'm looking him up on Instagram right now. I hope you are a woke douche. God, please say you're a woke douche. Colin. I bet you I know more about Einstein than you do, Colin. Oh, there's too many, Colin. Oh, I'll do Colin Alcar's. CrossFit. Where is he? I don't see. Is this him? Oh, is this him? Did I find him? Is this you? Are you at CrossFit 920, Colin? Because if this is you, buddy, there's no way in hell I'm making fun of you. There's no way in hell. Dude, remember, you don't care about comments. Dude, remember, I'm running a show here. You jackass. Colin must be gone. This guy that I found, I can't make fun of. You know when someone's too easy of a target? You know what I mean?
You want to have to work for it?
I mean, it would just be fucked up to make fun of them.
It's like making fun of an autistic kid.
And just inappropriate. All right. The chat is subsidized show content. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'm walking to the Toyota dealership. What a great show.
Yeah, that was awesome. I'm glad I got to hang out for a little longer.
I get excited. It's not that I'm no Einstein. I'm definitely an Einstein. Definitely smart as Einstein. It's just that I get so excited when we have people like him. I felt because I was told he could only be on for 15 minutes. So I start to get a little fucking like, you know what I mean? Like a little like
yeah. You want to be quick. You want to be poignant.
Yeah. It's kind of like being with you haven't had sex in a few days and you're about to put your dick in. You're like, God, please give me more than 2 pumps. Please. It's like that.
That was me today.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Welcome home.
Thanks. It was cool.
I love you.
I got like 4 in, so
make me a sandwich. What'd you say?
Said I got 4 in, so I felt accomplished.
You're like, make me a sandwich. Make me a sandwich.
Where's my coffee?
Hey, when you get as many pumps in while you're ejaculating as you did before, you
You're like, damn.
You know you didn't last long enough.
I'm sorry.
All right, everyone. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I was gonna have some Australian guy on. The guy I thought was black, but it's really white with the fro. But I guess I'm not. And then tomorrow morning we'll have Alex Kazan on. All right. Bye-bye.